items.
Andy, I wrote to Barbara yesterday. Yes.
Okay, well, we'll carry on going through this. Minutes held of the meeting back on the 11th of February 2020. Cabinet, are we happy to agree the minutes?
Agreed. Yep.
Okay. I'll sign those. So declarations of interest by councillors, if there are any. Cabinet, are there anything to declare that isn't captured on the on our declarations? I'll just declare an interest. I probably don't need to, but I will do in item 20, Northampton North West Relief Road, and in that I'm a member of the SEMLET board, but I didn't take part in the debate when that item was discussed at the last meeting. So, announcements. I'd like to mention a couple of things. Obviously, there's a lot of concern at the moment around coronavirus and COVID-19, so I'd like to read a brief statement, if I may. So, just to say that work is ongoing to prepare for the potential impacts of the COVID-19 in Northamptonshire. This is a multi-agency effort being led locally by NCC through Public Health and Emergency Planning, the CCG and Public Health England also. Incident management structures have been established and plans are being developed for the implementation of the UK Action Plan. Whilst our understanding of COVID-19 is improving all the time, there remains significant uncertainty about the scale of the response required and therefore the associated financial impacts. NCC has mechanisms to capture the costs incurred both in terms of actual expenditure and diverted resources with a view of ensuring that we can track these and if possible seek to reclaim them through the National Finance Assistance Schemes. So Cabinet and I are having regular briefings, including Ian as the Cabinet Member for Public Health. We know and we're assured that the Public Health Department here is linked very closely with what's going on centrally through government, and I know members received a briefing last week, and when we have any further information to share, we will send another briefing out. Thank you. So, another point just to make, we've got a lot of items on the agenda today, 22 in all, including 3 potentially exempt items on pink papers. We'll deal with that at them, but which includes 1 item on the Shore PFI scheme, which is very good news. So we will deal with the public exemption part at the end of the meeting when we come to those items. And I would ask that if public members, when they are addressing Cabinet, try and keep it succinct because it is quite a marathon agenda. So first off, we'll go to item 6, the monthly revenue monitoring report. Councillor Longley.
Thank you, Chair. Well, very much more of the same. Not a great deal to add from previous periods, other than looking on page 19. Now see that there's an improvement, albeit small, in the year-end forecast to an underspend of 119,000. So we're on track there to slightly better than balance the books, and we do know that period 11 is looking quite good as well. We are now pretty much at the end of the financial year, a couple of weeks away, so I wouldn't expect that to change very much. It'll get a little bit better, but so I think we can say with some confidence now that we will balance the books this year. Clearly the virus will come into play next year. We'll wait and see there. I can't answer that one, but this year, so that's 2 years on the trot. We've balanced the books, and in line with our objective of 3 years with a balanced books, borrowings reduced and reserves have gone up. So that's all I'm intending to say on that section, Chair.
Thank you. Got Councillor Scrimshaw.
Thank you, Chair. On behalf of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, we've got a couple of minor technical questions about some relatively small things which I've already emailed written questions to the portfolio holder. The only thing we want to ask the Cabinet publicly today is something that you've just touched on in your announcement, which I appreciate, about the coronavirus. We were wondering, I mean, we're assuming obviously that public health and social services, along with the NHS, will be making some broader public statements about how they will be dealing with the future, but we wanted within the remit of scrutiny to ask about the financial side of that, the sort of emergency planning, and just really to try and get an understanding of how that works. Is it that the finance team sort of are reactive? Public health, social services come and say, well, we've got to spend this, you need to find us the money, or are there already discussions taking place within the sort of broader council about how finance may be able to find the money? And I appreciate it's difficult because we don't yet know exactly what the outcomes are likely to be. Presumably there's the budget contingency fund and the reserves, small amounts of reserves, and the leader has touched on the possibility of being able to possibly reclaim any expenditure from central government. So we're just trying to get an understanding of how it works in practice with the finance team, whether they are already involved in discussions and negotiations. And appreciate you may not be able to answer that now, but if so, a written answer for that also would be very useful. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stanborough.
Thank you, Chair. Three things. The first one is on page 19 of the paperwork. There's a reference to an underspend on the book fund at libraries of £50,000, which obviously will be a disappointment to library staff, those who may at some point be taking over community managed libraries and declare my interest involved in a group there, and also library users who would like to be able to borrow new books from time to time. So I'm wondering what the reason is for this underspend, and whether, if it's something that you intend to carry forward to the year end, you might at least give some consideration, should there be an overall underspend on the year, to rolling that amount over, so if it can't be spent this year, it might be able to be spent next year. Moving to page 29, there's an underspend on a reduction, in fact, in the cost of parking enforcement, £169,000. Many residents in the county might think that we need to be spending more on parking enforcement, not less. So again, I'm interested to know what the reason for that is, if anyone can help, and also perhaps some confirmation that at least that might only be a temporary rather than a permanent reduction in expenditure on parking enforcement. And finally, at bottom of page 29, top of page 30, there's the creation of a Section 38 reserve with an initial transfer in of £443,000, which is a decent sum of money, and a clear indication in paragraph 5.41 that there's going to be further amounts transferred in, and I take the point that it does say work continues to ascertain the full amount, but it would be interested to know what the thoughts are right now as to what the total amount is that is likely to be needed, because that could be a significant sum, I suspect, and may have an impact on the finances of the county. So what assessment has been made of what further sums need to go into this reserve? What does the assessment say? And does the current approach have the full approval of the auditors? Thank you.
Thank you. We've got Councillor Hales.
Thank you, Chair. The children to actually, have a book. It's so important for children to have a book. And also, I know you're saying we're actually hitting on budget, but what I think is really sad when we look down here, it's all staff vacancies, underspend on staff vacancies, staff vacancies, staff vacancies. And if we haven't got the staff, we can't deliver the services. And especially when you think on the third item I want to pick up, is when we look is under 520, when we're looking at, once again, we're doing write-offs within LGS where we haven't collected. And there's small amounts of money, but small amounts of money add up to a lot of money. And a lot of services have not been delivered. I know some of this is pre-LGSS, but this should have been picked up earlier, Chair. So thank you very much.
Thank you for being quick. Did you want to? Okay.
Yeah, I'm just going to say about the book fund. We'll have to come back to you on that because I don't have the specifics in front of me.
Thank you.
Okay, before we go back to Councillor Longley, I just want to say the sort of same thing that I've been saying all the way through our meetings on the journey through this financial year, in that, you know, the enormous effort needs to be recognised that has gone into achieving where we are, this position now, which is, I still find it is quite astounding, but knowing and seeing every day the amount of effort that goes in from the senior officers permeating down all the way through the organisation to get to grips with the finances. We know where the pressures are still in children's, and I know and I'm confident in all the work that's going on there, but it needs to be recognised that this hasn't happened by accident. It's been a huge amount of work from, you know, the pressure, if you like, and the input from us as members through scrutiny, and the great work of the officers. And it goes to underline that point I've said a number of times, that we will do everything we can to leave this council in the best possible place as we transition to unitary, and this continues to reinforce that message and underlines that point, I think. Councillor Longley.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll deal with Mick's point first. I know very well that the calibre of the staff we've got, of our directorships here, of course a great deal of thought and consideration's gone into where we go on this. The fact of the matter is, though, none of us really know where we're going. This is all uncharted territory. A lot of thought's gone into it, and it certainly won't be for want of thinking about the issue. Moving on to some of the more minor points brought up by Chris there. We, of course, didn't have our normal Thursday afternoon before the Cabinet meeting because I'm afraid I was struck down with a dreaded lurgy, food poisoning, and wasn't here. So normally those fairly trivial questions would have been dealt with then, Chris, as you well know. So, but we'll take note of them and come back to you on them. And I think regarding the libraries, a very fair point. And as Liz has said, we'll come back to you on that one with a straight answer. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, just before we move on, I'll perhaps just ask Kerry Pennell if she could make some comments on the point around the virus and some of the steps being taken here. Thank you. As Kerry is the lead on our emergency planning.
Yes, thank you, Chair. As was covered in the initial briefing, we've got instant control procedures in place, jointly multi-agency. NCC is leading on that, but obviously working very closely with our CCG colleagues and with public health. In terms of our arrangements here for decision making, we've established a working group of sort of middle manager being led by our emergency planning manager. So we've got people from across the organisation coming together to discuss the implications for NCC. Finance have worked with us to set up a mechanism to capture any costs that are associated with planning and implementation of plans for the virus. That's just started this week, so we will start to capture and try to track those. And at a senior level, NLT are discussing the matter at some length every Monday, and obviously if we need to do that in between times, then we will be as well. We're doing a further briefing for leaders across the county on Thursday of this week, and we will continue to keep the rest of all the members updated.
Thank you, Kerry. Okay, Cabinet, are we happy to agree finance report?
Yes, agree.
Thank you. Move on to item 7, the monthly capital report. Councillor Longley again.
Again, much more of the same. If you look at the year-end forecast, it's slightly down, as has been happening most of the last half of this year. 65 million is the anticipated spend. Quite an array of programmes there. Some are straightforward schools, items, improvements, things of that nature, but also there's some very interesting productivity measures in there, which will come out later in the meeting. So the forecast of 65 million will be thereabouts at the year end is our capital figure, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Longley. No speakers on this. Just to reaffirm that point, that there's even though we've not spent quite so much this year, there's an awful lot of good work that has gone on. And that's listed in the report, page 53. Cabinet, we happy to agree the reports? Thank you. So item 8, quarterly corporate report on performance. Councillor Bowen.
Yep. Okay, so if you want to go to pack 1, page 67 to 94, it's Richard Corliss, who's done a fantastic job again this quarter in terms of pulling all these stats together. He's also produced an additional report, which should be in your pack, and I have to say that's more detailed and actually incredibly interesting. I noted the open water swimming pool at Sywell, which was a particular interest of mine, but there is a lot in there for you to read in addition to the stats. What I wanted to do was just highlight a number of particular areas, and then, you know, if any of you guys have got anything else you want to add as well, then please chip in. The number of requests for new service following a stay in hospital, I think it stands to reason at this time of year, but that is a huge increase in number of requests, and I think with the coronavirus that's only going to actually get worse. That's on page 73. Going on to page 74, I think the thing to highlight there is about the smoking quit rate at 4 weeks. We are below the national average for those that are wanting to quit smoking through the service. But the reason for highlighting it is because the service is actually going to undergo a redesign to improve the way it's delivered, which will hopefully then increase the quit rate for smoking. The next stat I wanted to highlight was again on page 74, which was the MMR statistics and the uptake of vaccinations in that area. We've heard a lot in the local press and also in the national press about the importance of this, and our uptake is actually very good when you compare us to the national average, and we're above the national average in that. And then going on to obesity on page 75, again, something that we need to keep our eye on because of the concerns nationally and locally on childhood obesity. The rates have gone down slightly, but again, it is an area that we will be targeting in the future, particularly as we go towards unitary. And then just very quickly on the public health suicide rate, whilst that is higher than the national comparator, it has been actually reducing over the last 4 years. So even though it is slightly higher than the norm, that is a lot less than it was about 4 years ago. So there's a lot of hard work going on there that might not seem sort of clear when you first read those statistics. I also wanted to refer to Fiona in terms of the children's stats, whether there's anything you wanted to comment in terms of allocation for children in homes, etc.
Thank you. On page 77, proportion of children placed in-house provision, that has gone up from 47.9 to 50.4, but that's because we're moving children from other provisions into our own services. So that will be an increase, we hope, that will be ongoing because it brings children back into the auspices of NCC rather than out of other provisions. Do you want me to go on to my next bit?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to point out on page 83 is to do with education, and that's the children electively home educated. And I don't know if any of you saw the report that I gave on our recent situation that we had, but I have been for over a year contacting MPs about electively home education, and I do fully appreciate that there is a percentage of children who are beautifully educated at home by responsible people, but unfortunately there's a large number of children who are not in that position. And currently the County Council Education Service has no powers at all to interfere with children being electively home educated, and it is something that I have written with the leader to the Department of Education and the NLGA to voice our concerns over, so I hope that they will look into this with a matter of urgency. The other one was I'll come back to it.
Okay, we'll come back to you. So we've got Councillor Roy.
Thank you, and thank you for the report. Thank you in particular for Councillor Baker and her comments in relation to the issues relating to electively home educated children. I have in the past asked about the issues on permanent exclusions. As you can see in the graph, these are still in an upward trajectory, and actually there is a link between permanent exclusions and electively home-educated children. In the past, I've asked for the disproportionality stats in relation to BAME children and SEND children, and I've been told these aren't available. Having met with the officer, it does seem that they are indeed available, and they do show significant disproportionality. So I would like to ask what in particular is being done in respect of reducing disproportionality. And also, I hear what you say, Councillor Baker, about writing to the government and relative ministers, but given that the serious case review did highlight the issues around electively home-educated children and the issues around risk, what other things are we doing to promote best practice? I hear what you say about we have no we have no powers to do things, but is there any kind of actions we can do, given that children's lives are at stake? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stanborough.
Chair, a couple of questions. First one is on the theme under corporate measures on page 85, which is the proportion of FOI and EIR requests delivered within timescale, which has seen a sustained drop over, well, 4 or 5 quarters now, and still on a downward trend. Is this something we intend to address and reverse? Because most councils seem to pride themselves on achieving as near to 100% within time as possible, and we certainly were able to do that at one time. It would be good to get back to that, so perhaps the Cabinet member could confirm that that's our intention and how quickly we plan to get there. And in the second report, the section on improving the health of rough sleepers, just a quick point, would you agree with me that the best way we could improve the health of rough sleepers is to find them somewhere to live? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There was a couple of points I would like to make. One of them is about the number of apprentices employed by us at NCC. We continue on an upward trajectory, which is really good. And I was actually at the SEMLEP board that I referred to earlier a couple of weeks ago, and I saw some stats on the SEMLEP area about new starters in apprenticeships, and Northamptonshire was far above any of our close neighbours in the SEMLEP area. So I was really encouraged by that. And also there's something positive on the number of defects repaired on the network, treading on Councillor Smithers' territory here, that they continue to go up, and with the item that we've got later, I hope to see those figures go up quite significantly. On the point raised by Councillor Roy, I think Councillor Baker and I are satisfied. We've done and we're doing as much as we can in terms of raising the profile of the issue of elective home-educated children. You know, I know Councillor Baker has been talking to the MPs. We've had some good feedback from a couple of our MPs in particular, and we wrote, as I said, as Councillor Baker said, to the chair of the LGA to say this needs a national review, and we will be happy to supply some of the stats and learning of what we've found and discovered here, because our numbers are proportionately high, that could feed into that. So I'm satisfied with doing as much as we can, but obviously we need to keep pressure on our own department to do as much as we can, and keep this as something that needs to be raised at the highest levels of government. Councillor Pone.
Referring to the question on freedom of information, I think we have moved volumes in terms of the amount of information that has been provided. I am aware that there is a backlog, and the department is doing as much as it can to push that one through. And those areas of the council that are struggling to provide that information quickly, they are being supported. So we hope to see improvements, but we are aware of the situation and it is under control. As far as rough sleepers are concerned, you asked the question, is the best way to find them somewhere to sleep? Well, this is an area that I have got experience of in terms of supporting rough sleepers. I had spent 5 years voluntarily looking after the homeless and rough sleepers in Northampton. And I can honestly say that, again, the situation has improved. There is a high volume of rough sleepers, I would agree, but it has improved. And what I would say is not all rough sleepers do actually want somewhere to sleep, and that is part of the problem. It's a bit like with drug addiction. Not every drug addict wants to be helped. So you can lead a horse to water, but you can't always make them drink, as the saying goes. But obviously the borough are doing a sterling job in terms of helping rough sleepers and have considerably increased the number of bed provisions in the county and also in Northampton to support those rough sleepers.
Thank you. Cabinet, we happy to agree with the report? Thank you. So move on to item 9, climate change, carbon management and the environment. Councillor Smithers.
Thank you very much, Chairman. So the report on the climate, carbon management and environment has been prepared partly in response to the climate emergency motion which was passed last June, but also provides to progress an update on the significant carbon emission reductions made by the County Council and to endorse the refreshed partnership climate change strategy for Northamptonshire to 2020 to 2023. The main points to really note, to be honest, is the County Council has been committed to tackling the cause and effects of climate change since 2006. So it's nothing really quite new. This is something that has gone on for a while. And it's achieved national recognition and numerous awards for many of its initiatives. Even when interest in climate change has not always been as great as it is now, NCC has been committed and concerted in its efforts to reduce its own carbon emissions. It's worked in partnerships with others to provide strategic framework for climate change action in the county and has undertaken many successful initiatives to reduce carbon emissions, the cause of the climate change, as we all know, as well as reducing the impacts of climate change such as flooding. NCC has made significant progress in reducing its own carbon emissions as an authority. Over the past 10 years, this equates to a substantial 72% reduction, which is amazing, really. The decision by Cabinet in January 2020 to buy green energy going forward means that these emissions will reduce even further. Over the 10-year period, offsetting our carbon emissions has saved the authority in the regions of £9.6 million. So it's no small sum. NCC can readily work towards being carbon neutral by either planting more trees to add to the 600,000 trees which NCC already owns, mostly on our highways, or explore opportunities in renewable energy sources such as solar panel initiatives which Cabinet are asked to approve in this report. NCC, in partnership with the Woodland Trust, has already facilitated the planting of over 253,000 trees in the county, and plans are underway to further invest and approach with a new tree planting initiative ready to come on stream for the new planting season later in this year. With regards to its wider role, the authority NCC has led development of the Partnership Climate Change Strategy for Northamptonshire, which was agreed back in Cabinet in 2010. Due to its success, it has been further refreshed further 3 times. The current version will take us up to 2023, and Cabinet is asked to endorse this highly successful partnership approach. Whilst the impressive carbon emissions reduction of NCC as an organisation is something the whole of the Council can be proud of achieving, and partnership success of the previous climate change strategy should be congratulated, it's imperative that we continually work towards carbon emissions and addressing the impacts of climate change for the benefit of all those that live and work in Northamptonshire.
Thank you, Councillor Smithers. I've got Councillor Stone.
Thank you very much. I have to say I was really pleased to read this report, and I'm really glad to see so much work has been going on. I do have some questions for you though, if that's okay. Can you confirm that we've still got a commitment to be carbon neutral by 2030? It's a bit confused in the report. I wasn't quite sure whether that was still the undertaking. Are you aware that in the Chronicle and Echo last week, it said that there are 111,000 homes in the county that fall below the government's targets to make homes energy efficient? So that's rather a large number, and maybe we need to have a view about what ought to be happening about that. I noted what was being said in this report about landfill, and it's a bit alarming. We know it's alarming, having methane emissions from landfill. And I note that the mitigations for that was tree planting. And I'm just wondering if there are other mitigations that because that is an alarming feature of landfill. I'm just wondering if there are other mitigations that need to be thought about, and what are they? Nowhere in the report does it say that all our services are required to green their policies and their practice. I'm just wondering if that's an omission, because it seems to me that that's something that can usefully be done. I noted with interest that Daventry has had a big switch to green energy suppliers. It's something that my group has been recommending for years and years and years, and I think maybe we ought to incorporate that into our forward plans. I'm also really concerned still about air quality, particularly in Northampton and in Corby and the urban areas. It's a huge issue. My group has recommended that we do enforcement around car idling. I also think that we ought to be creating safe spaces, clean spaces around schools and hospitals, and that ought to inform our integrated transport plan, which I know is under development at the moment. I think, I'm really pleased to see the quantity and the quality of the work that's been carried out so far, but we are in a state of an emergency, and I think there is a huge amount that still needs to be done. So I look forward to your answers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We've got Councillor Kilbride.
Thank you very much indeed for letting me speak today. Just a quick one. I want to touch on charging points in streets. I welcome this report. Thank you very much. Everybody's going to need charging points in the future, that is for sure. At the moment, residents are saying to me they have grave concerns where these charging points are going to be situated. And in residential streets, is that the best place for them? With the charging points, they will be 24/7, 365 days of the year. And although electric cars are quiet, of course they are, the car doors aren't. And when you've got people getting in and out the cars all day long and all through the night, this raises issues. Is there any better places for the charging points to be situated? Another big piece people are saying to me is, because you're increasing the level of car movement into streets, is this a road safety issue? People are concerned that where you've got just a couple of charging points here and there, you're going to be dragging all the other electric cars from across different neighbourhoods to those focal points. And of course, car safety, is paramount. Residents are concerned. We don't want any children to be knocked over going forward. So I call upon the council here just to say, could you make sure you put the charging points in the correct places across the county, please? And really study the reports and the consultation. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Stanborough.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'd also like to welcome this report as the first of two reports that the motion that we passed at full council a little while ago called for. The motion also asked for a updated report within 12 months of this report being presented, so I look forward to that one whilst we're still in existence. just wanted to raise an issue around this strategy and around the commitment to be carbon neutral by 2030. In November last year, there was a planning committee meeting at which there was a proposal for a waste plant in Corby at Shelton Road, which was passed by the committee. I think many people there were uncomfortable that the committee gave permission, but we were told at the time by an officer that the motion that had been passed by full council had not been incorporated into the council's planning policy or some similar terminology, and so it wasn't necessarily something that the committee could have regard to when making a decision on what's basically a plant that burns waste. So my request to the Cabinet member would be that would he be prepared to take away from this meeting as some sort of an action the commitment to investigate how the council incorporates this commitment that it has made to the people of Northamptonshire into its planning policy, so that members at a planning committee, when they consider decisions that may have an effect on our climate, can take that commitment into account, because I think that would be a useful thing to do. It may not be something we'll be able to do in the life of this council, because I know that these sort of things move with a glacial slowness, but if we can kick the process off, hopefully it'll be something that those that succeed us might pick up and incorporate at some point in the future, and I'm sure the people of Northamptonshire would be grateful for that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Stanborough. I'll just make a couple of points before we go back to Councillor Smithers. One is just to reiterate that point that Councillor Smithers opened with, in so much as that the issue has been taken very seriously, and it talks about meetings going back to 2006 and involvement of all of the leaders of the 8 local authorities here in Northamptonshire. And I think action has been taken, and you can see from the chart on page 6 that there has been significant carbon emissions reductions going way back to 2008, 2009, which not only has resulted in significant savings financially, but of course the importance around those tons of CO2 that have been emitted is a huge amount. And just to welcome, and I spoke with the Chief Exec about this a while ago, about reinstating an initiative about tree planting to make sure we're doing everything we can off the back of, it seems that we have planted over 250,000 trees over the past 11 years, which is a significant amount. And I know things like the Daventry Link Road, I saw a report there that there was something like 40-odd thousand plants planted just on that one road. So we do have the chance to make a big difference, and I'm really pleased that we're starting to ramp that up. And I just want to also acknowledge that South Northampton have helped us and chipped into that, getting that project going. So I look forward to accelerating the amount of trees we plant over the next 5-10 years. And of course we're talking way into the existence of the new unitaries, but I think this is a really good paper. It articulates well what's going on here, where the challenges are around things like offsetting on some of the old landfill sites, and captures everything well in a good updated strategy at the back of the report. Councillor Smithers.
Thank you, Chairman. So I'm going to answer some of the questions that have been put forth from Councillor Soane. Landfill, look, the whole idea of this policy is it's constantly being refreshed, so we're taking into account everything that's happening. We have a limited lifespan now, so we'll be going to unitaries, which will make this a lot easier to sort of amalgamate a lot of these things. You talked about the 2030 goal to be carbon neutral. That is the plan. It's a non-binding agreement on the executive, but it is the plan that this county council will be, hopefully, carbon neutral by 2030. And government housing, again, doesn't really fall into our remit, social housing. That will be, again, down to the boroughs and the district areas. But again, moving to unitary, it will join up that thinking process and make everybody aware and sort of, bringing together the whole carbon neutral sort of agenda together. You talked about green energy. I think it was the last Cabinet report we approved a paper that we would be purchasing all green energy through our contracts. So that's actually already happening through the laser contract that was set up with other county councils around the country, a big buy-in sort of conglomerate of power. I think I'd like to re-echo I think I've answered most of your questions, Councillor Stone, on that. I'd like to re-echo the thanks to South Northamptonshire Council for the 20,000 that they've added to some of these projects, which is very, very useful and just shows, you know, where we were and where we've come to and how we're working together with district and borough councils across the county. Councillor Kilbride, charging points, you met with myself and the leader a while ago. I don't know where you've gone, you've disappeared. There we are. Again, consultations happening. Let's see what that brings back, see what the public comes back to us, and you know, nothing's set in stone. Let's just see where we go with that, and we will keep you fully posted and up to speed with that. Councillor Stanborough, again, I answered one of your questions about carbon neutral 2030. Again, we're aiming towards getting it done, and we hope to get it there. And again, the unitary joining up will help with all the different areas that you brought up in your questions. There, you know, with power plants, planning, and so on. All of that will come under the relevant unitary. So, you know, the carbon climate change management structure will come together as a whole, with everything coming into that, feeding into it. So it will make it a lot easier and shows the advantages of having a unitary or two unitary councils to oversee all this sort of stuff. So I hope I've answered your questions. If I haven't, please feel free to email me, and I'm more than happy to get a more detailed response to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments, Cabinet? Are we happy to agree with the reports? Thank you. Move on to item 10, the school organisational changes, establishment of an amalgamation policy. Councillor Baker.
Thank you. This, as you said, Chairman, is an amalgamation policy. So not something we're doing right this second, but it's a policy that we need to have in place. In the county, we've got 18 pairs of what are called linked primaries. This is where there's an infant's school and a junior school which operate in a separate way. They have separate management. So 6 of these schools are maintained by the council, and NCC retain the responsibility for organisational changes to these schools. The policy in front of us today only applies to the 6 maintained schools that are under the remit of the county council. The policy will give the council the opportunities to bring infant schools and junior schools together when circumstances allow. This will reduce the number of changes pupils have to make, give a holistic overview of the whole of junior education, and allow older pupils to work together in a caring for each other role. Data shows us that children achieve more with fewer educational changes. Combined schools on a shared site can maximise efficiency and resources. A single head teacher would give a good overview of the whole of primary education in the child and saves duplication in other roles. This is particularly relevant to the new government policy moving towards national schools funding policy. This policy also falls into the new Ofsted framework for the future planning of the curriculum. We will only implement these changes under the headings listed in the papers under section 3.5 on this report. The policy has been consulted on between the 15th of January and the 12th of February with all of the county schools. We had 14 out of 18 take part. We've amended the policy in accordance with their feedback, and all changes would have to be made in conjunction with the Department of Education legislation. So I ask the Cabinet to agree the implementation of this policy.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. I know we've read the report and the new policy, discussed it earlier, and I think we're all happy to agree the report. Cabinet?
Yeah.
Thank you. So move on to item 11, new school places for Corby, provision of mainstream temporary Bulge secondary school capacity and permanent additional SEND capacity. Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a really good news story for Corby. This report seeks permission to utilise funds from the Direct Schools Grant Public Growth Fund, and this has no implications on Northamptonshire County Council's General Fund. As set out in item 3.5, 6 and 7 in the papers, this report sets out the plans for the Red Kite Send Academy in Corby to increase their PAN from 100 to 120, to agree a capital scheme for a new sixth form block for Red Kite. This is leaving other capacity in the school in order to take younger pupils, and we're asking the Cabinet to authorise the scheme to proceed to construction stage and delegate authority to the Director of Children's Services and the lead member to appoint preferred bidders and authorise all matters relevant to facilitate this scheme. These are much needed places as we have had a high rise in SEND pupils in the county. Costs for this new build will be £700,000. Also in this report, a request for Corby Technical College and Brook Western Academy. They have agreed to put in place a rise to their PAN from 150 to 234 and 180 to 186 to accommodate the temporary bulge years from 2020-21 to 2021-22. I'm asking Cabinet to approve the drawing down of funds to enable these schools to accommodate these pupils. The costs are set out in item 3.8 to 313 in the papers, amounting to £200,000 rather, from the Direct Schools Grant, with absolutely no implication at all on the Northamptonshire County Council general funds. So I'm asking for agreement for that.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Got Councillor Stone.
I'm referring to Councillor Birch.
Councillor Birch then.
Right, thank you, Chair. It's very good that there's money available to increase the school sizes, but it does actually bring up a number of questions, mostly about the SEND provision within the county. Can I have an explanation, or is there an explanation, for the almost doubling of percentage of SEND children within this county? 25% nationally, 46% in Northamptonshire within the periods of 2014 to 2019. You know, a very strange anomaly there. Why do we have so many more SEND children? And I'm told also, you know, we have this prediction, every SEND school that is opened in the county is full immediately. We have no spare places. There are children who do not have school places, and they're in desperate need of it. We know that this is a growing county. We know that the development in this part of the country is larger than many places, and we should be able to predict these figures. The same thing happens for the Brook Western and the Corby Technical College. We know that we're growing. We have a growing population. Why are we not able to predict this growth and accommodate these children in a better way? Increases in school admissions put strain on the infrastructure of the school. There's simple things like changing rooms, the school toilets, cafe, dining facilities, the staff, just the sheer sort of physical presence of more young people in a building puts the building and the people that work in it under strain. So I think we should be able to predict this. I can't see why, with all the numbers there and the, you know, the known things that are happening, why we can't do that. And the other thing is, we used to have a plan, an up-to-date plan for predicted numbers. We haven't had that recently. Could we have one, please? And are there any academy trusts or free schools coming forward to offer to plug this gap? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stamborough.
Thanks, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to welcome the investment in new school places in the Red Kite Academy in Corby. I visited there it's probably nearly a year ago now, actually, but, you know, and it's a absolutely inspiring place, and the staff there do brilliant work. I've got nothing but admiration for them, and to add a sixth form to the school, which was something that was mentioned to me at the time as being something they wanted, is absolutely brilliant. I'm really pleased about that, so thank you for that. I think the other stuff in this report, the other bit about school places in Corby, for me illustrates the havoc that the free school programme can play with school place planning. You know, we were told there was going to be a free school in Corby. A site hasn't been found. It's not been opened. Because of that, this action is having to be taken. If we had any influence over when the building of new schools in Corby, perhaps it wouldn't be done quite this way. But because it's not that way, we have this. So that's a disappointment. But I appreciate the challenges that programme causes for us in planning school places. Just looking at the number of places that have been planned at Corby Technical School and Brook Western Academy, it looks from the figures like 6 at Brook Western Academy and the other 84, I think, if my maths are right, at Corby Technical School, which seems quite a disparity between the two schools. I'm wondering why it's been planned in that particular way. I presume they told us where they wanted the places to be, and we had to accept it. But I was wondering what the reason was, and whether we were able to offer any challenge to that, as to whether perhaps you know, the new places should have been shared out between the two schools a bit more equally. So I'd be interested to know. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Baker, did you want to come back on those?
Councillor Birch, I'd just say first of all as to reason why. I think we would all love to be able to predict that, but I will go back to the officers and see if we can find any information for you, which I will send to you. Councillor Stamborough, the difficulty that we have is with academy schools. We are working very hard to get conversations going with academy schools because they don't have to actually have conversations with us at all. So it may be that they decided, but I will go back and ask the team exactly what happened with the share out of, or maybe one school is more able to cope with more numbers than the other. But I will get back to you on that one.
Thank you. So despite the challenges, this is good news for Corby and investment in these schools. Yeah. Okay, Cabinet, we're happy to agree the report. Thank you. So we move on to item 12, the Transport Studies and Highway Scheme Preparation. Councillor Smithers.
Thank you, Leader. So this is a fantastic piece of work again by the officers, and my thanks wholly go out to everyone that's been involved in this. It's to agree a programme of scheme set out in section 5 of the report to agree a delegated authority to award the contracts for that work. This is the first of 6 papers on the agenda dealing with highways and transport matters, and probably the widest ranging. It proposes to use funding we have accumulated from fees charged to developers, together with contributions from our boroughs and district councils. And I will go on to sort of a little bit further details about the boroughs and districts that have contributed to that in a minute. To progress nearly £5.5 million of design work on the highway schemes across the county and key items of transport study work. Many of these schemes have already been subject to our funding bids. Others are expected to be in the future. This investment is in our infrastructure and will provide a legacy to enable the new unitary authorities to be in an excellent position to deliver upon these schemes going forward, which marries nicely into the leaders' promise that we will deliver this county council in the best possible shape and form to the unitaries. It also shows that there's an ability there to unlock millions of pounds in infrastructure funding to make Northamptonshire a better place to get around with the driving and the new roads and cycle paths, etc. And it shows the commitment of the Conservative government to invest heavily in infrastructure, which again is a positive. So I would just like to just sort of go through some of these projects. So we've got the A509 Isham bypass. I mean, Peter Bone, the local MP, has lobbied exceptionally hard for this, and our thanks go out to him, and also the Borough of Wellingborough Council as well for helping with the contribution. Again, this is greatly appreciated, and you know, it helps with the joining up of the unitaries and everything that goes with that. The A43 Phase 3, you can see all the funding that's available there. I'm just going to flick down to some of the major ones that I really want to sort of appreciate the work that's done by various people, like the A422 Fivenhove bypass. The Right Honourable Andrew Ledson has really worked so hard to help us in getting meetings and with the relevant people at Westminster. She's applied pressure where she's needed to. And again, South Northampton Council have come to the rescue with some money to help with that. So we're entirely grateful for all of that as well. So I'm not really sort of going to go on too much more apart, NBC as well, the Northampton Transport Strategy, they've put in a good chunk of money into that to help. But it just shows how far we've come in such a short period of time with the unitary model moving forward and people realising that we need to all put our heads together to make a Northamptonshire better for everybody. So I hope Cabinet agrees to approve.
Thank you, Councillor Smithers. Councillor Lormond.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to welcome this report, in particular the two schemes in paragraph 5.2. Now that Floor has its bypass, I suspect that the Isham campaign is probably the longest running one in the county for some relief, and they will be very pleased. They put up with the quantity of traffic for too long now, and this is very welcome news. The commitment of the borough is evidence from this £1 million that hopefully they will approve on Wednesday at their resources meeting. I welcome the A43 as well because studies have shown that a number of cars actually use the A509 to avoid going down the A43 at times and then come down the A45. So both of them will work together. Not only will they relieve the stresses of the people of Isham, but they'll also unlock some of the housing around in Glenvale Park, Wellingborough North, and there's an accident black spot at a place called Hilltop. Some of you will remember a horrific accident where two young people were paralysed as a car cut across there a couple of years ago, and this road will help to alleviate that accident black spot. So I very much welcome this report, and hopefully we can get on it, and we want to beat the Farthinghoe bypass.
Thank you. Councillor Morris.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I was just going to reiterate some of what Councillor Smithers said about Farthinghoe. It has been a long-fought campaign to get that one off the ground, and I know everyone in that area will be very pleased to see this on here. But this will get us a preferred route, which I think is certainly getting us to the next stage where we can apply for funding to complete that road. But if you look at that as one of many on here, I think it's a real success story, really, with infrastructure. We've always been fairly good at providing infrastructure, but this is another example of many schemes that will be going forward, as Councillor Smithers said, into the new unitary and providing good transport links for us as we go forward. And again, I would just mention Andrea Ledson in connection with the Farthinghoe bypass. She really has worked very hard on that to help get that off the ground, and we will be very pleased to see this go forward to the next stage, as will the people of Farthinghoe. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'll just add as well, I think the key word Councillor Smithers used is legacy, and this is about putting our ducks in a row as we move into unitary. We've not been in a position to get all these schemes ready, and there's 12 that are cut all the way across the county, and maybe we can get a bit of a race between Farthinghoe and Isham, and I'm really pleased we've got this before us today. Councillor Smithers.
Yeah, just really to sum up, really, I know someone's really got a stamp on my bad foot later on with this, but there is an individual, our chief executive, who has worked exceptionally hard, and I challenged her about 4 cabinets ago to get some of these plans on the go, and, well, she's gone above and beyond, but I think I'm going to get another bad foot on the way back up to the office. But thank you very much.
So, Cabinet, we happy to agree the report? Thank you. Item 13, bike ability cycle training. Councillor Smithers.
Yeah, thank you. So, this is to agree delegated authority to award a contract for the bike ability cycle training. You may recall that last month the Transport Minister, the Right Honourable Chris Heaton-Harris, visited the Newham Primary School in Daventry, and announced an expansion of the government support for the Bikeability Scheme, which offers cycle training to school children, not just school children, but adults as well. The purpose of this report is to enable us to award the contract for that work, as that increased funding over the last few years already means that the value of the contract will exceed our key decision threshold. Over the last 4 years, the scheme has delivered cycle training to nearly 19,000 people at no cost to the County Council. So, it's a tremendous benefit for people's health and so on. And we all remember when we first got on that push bike and managed to ride off and give our parents the slip. But so I certainly remember it. So some key points there. There's no cost to the county councils, but a very small cost to schools. Grant confirmed for 2020 to 21 is £143,565. Further funding may be confirmed for 3 years. The contract's going to be on a 1+1+1+1 year to give flexibility. So it's open to the unitaries to use the contract or not as they wish. And the procurement is underway already. So great story for kids. I was at the school with Chris Heaton-Harris, and Chris was very competitive. He wouldn't let any of the children win. I thought it was pretty bad sport, but nevertheless he played his parts. It's great to see children learn to ride bikes, because I think it's a key message on getting children out there, keeping fit, keeping active, and more importantly, keeping safe as well. So I hope Cabinet agree to this.
Thank you. Councillor Bowen, just a quick point.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to concur with that, and also to sort of link it into your previous paper about the Kettering local cycling and walking improvement plans, which you didn't mention because obviously there was a lot to mention. And just to say that, going forward to unitary, this whole area of public health is so important. So not only on the cycling side, which obviously starts off in schools, but also on the walking, the canoeing, and all these projects are starting to come to fruition now. And I think you'll see an acceleration of some really great initiatives to get everybody more active, reduce obesity levels, and improve public health. That's all I wanted to say.
Anything further to add, Councillor Smithers?
No, Mr. Chair, that's fine, thank you.
Cabinet, we're happy to agree the reports. Thank you. We're on to item 14, purchase of machinery to repair potholes. Councillor Smithers?
Yeah, absolutely. So the challenge of maintaining the public highway when the budget available are well known to members across the chamber and indeed councils across the country. They all face the same challenges. Potholes are a bane of our lives, but it's part of the business. At this council, we are always looking for ways to improve and maintain Northamptonshire roads in a cost-effective way, and continually seek to adopt methods that reduce the disruption to our road users as much as possible. Therefore, I'm pleased to present the members this business case to purchase 3 new vehicles, which will greatly increase our ability to repair our roads and keep our traffic flowing safely. In recent months, Northamptonshire Highways has been trialling thermal road repair machinery under our current contract. The trials have proved to be very successful, and the machines bring a number of benefits over the more traditional road repairing methods. Not only are they more productive, enabling us to repair more roads within the same budget envelope, but they also bring environmental benefits in line with the climate change commitments. The thermal road repair uses less material to repair the road, as it reuses the existing material that would normally be excavated out and disposed of in one of those rather large big grab lorries, which would pollute immensely. This means that less waste and less use of virgin material. Furthermore, the machine is partly powered by solar panels, which are mounted on the van and the machine itself, which results in fewer carbon emissions and improvements for air quality, which is a very keen point at the moment if we're working around main sort of cities and towns areas. One of the key benefits of this technology is that the repair lasts longer than the traditional methods. The machine heats the material around the pothole, which creates a continuous seal between the new material and the road, which is stronger and lasts longer than the traditional patches. This improves the road conditions for drivers as a result of fewer repeat repairs. It's a seamless repair. It doesn't get water going into it, so it doesn't pop out. So it's an absolute benefit in that respect. In its drive for continual improvements and innovation, Northamptonshire Highways has also been using jet patching machines for a number of years. This machinery is also known as the Roadmaster. It enables us to repair up to 120 square metres of defects a day and is operated by a single person. This makes us significantly more productive and cost-effective than traditional road repairing methods, which averages at 16 square metres. So you can see the rural network getting a real boost in the arm with this. The business case for purchasing these vehicles, as presented in Appendix 1, is convincing. Members will see the cost of repairing a square metre of carriageway utilising the thermal repair is estimated to be approximately £21, whilst Roadmaster costs are just under £18. This compares favourably against the conventional method, which costs over £63. So it is a real productivity saving in there. So, you know, again, that's really worth noting. Given the successful trials, the convincing business case and the additional benefits to road users, together with the environmental credentials of this proposal, the Cabinet is recommended to purchase 2 thermal road repair machines and 1 jet patching machine, Roadmaster. A total capital cost of £654,700 is estimated that this equipment would allow for the repair of at least an additional 33,000 square metres of road each year. The report recommends that Cabinet endorses the proposal to purchase this machinery, supports the capital investment proposal and delegates authority to the Executive Director for Strategic Delivery and Transformation in consultation with myself to progress the procurement subject to the appropriate finance being agreed.
Thank you. Councillor Stanborough.
Thank you, Chair. I'm a little confused as to what the gain is going to be here, and clearly there is going to be a gain because Councillor Smithers has referred to it. But for instance, in the budget we were told that we're going to repair an extra 38,000 potholes a year, and this report tells us that we're going to repair an additional 27,000 defects a year. So if a pothole is a defect, we're down 11,000 in a matter of a month. Then Councillor Smithers refers to 33,000 square metres, and I'm very confused. You know, what is a square metre? A pothole? Is it? You know, there's some big potholes around if they're a square metre each, but you know there are some big ones. So it would be useful to know exactly what the gain is here. Is it 38,000 extra potholes? Is it only 27,000 extra potholes? Is it something in between? Because I think people would like to know, and I'm sure Councillor Smithers would want to tell us. So perhaps we can hear that. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor McGee.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sure we all welcome this. It's a shame it hasn't happened earlier because, you know, we have a big problem nationally and in Northamptonshire when it comes to potholes. I'm sure there's not a councillor in here that doesn't get an email or a complaint about potholes. And indeed, it costs this council quite a considerable amount on fines, etc., and paying out for people that have damage. So we must welcome this, whether it's 27,000 or what, we welcome it. And I hope, moving forward, that it's not just used in the rural areas, Councillor Smithers. We have many, many problems in our towns and on our estates, and I'm sure there'll be an equal balance when it comes to making sure that the potholes in this county are covered. Because we know that we have problems on our main roads when we look at the buses, etc., and the damage it's caused to cars. But I, for one, welcome it and hope moving forward we can do as much as possible. But it's only a little bit of help. There's still a long, long way to go. We want to improve the roads in Northamptonshire.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. I just want to make a couple of points. I welcome that support for the item from Councillor McGee. I think this is another strong legacy item for us. And I'm really pleased that, we put a case to the Chief Exec and the Commissioners to say that we want to give something back to the public in Northamptonshire. We've all worked exceptionally hard over the last couple of years to put the right things back in place, and we want to repay the public. And I think this goes some way in doing that. We all acknowledge that there are significant challenges on the road network, but given the productivity and the efficiency of these machines, we need to make sure, I personally think, and I know Cabinet discussed this earlier, we sweat these assets far beyond what is actually down in the business case here as well. So I really welcome this, and we look forward to making a big impact. Councillor Smithers.
Thank you. I'll have those figures Councillor Stanborough looked into in a little bit more detail. I think there might just be a couple of sort of anomalies there, but we will have that looked into. It's good news. I mean, we are going to repair massive amounts of the roads in Northamptonshire with these machines, and rural and urban. So let me come back to you on those little anomalies in the figures for you, and we'll come back to Councillor McGee again, wherever you've disappeared to. There you are. Thank you very much for welcoming this. It's going to be good. It will really produce what we want it to produce. Some statistical figures are a good thing to go by now. I have some figures here where we where we've tested this machine, and we've got to bear in mind that we're now in the winter where the road surface temperature is very, very cold, and our average output per shift was 71 square metres of repairs, and we're in winter. So once we hit the summer months and the road surface temperature warms up, these machines will work a lot quicker because they haven't got to melt the road. It won't take so long to melt the road and so on. So I would envisage seeing productivity come up quite a bit. Our highest single shift output, which was on the perfect day, I guess, which would have been a nice long stretch of road with a lot of potholes, or as I call it, a scabby road where it's all breaking up, was 104 metres squared. So you're beginning to get the idea here of where the quantities that one of these machines can do. We're bringing two in to the county, so there's going to be a lot going on. Urban potholes, definitely, this is what this machine's for. We can get it out there, we can get it used. I've seen it myself. We had a demonstration outside One Angel Square the other day so some of the leaders could see it. It's absolutely fantastic. And again, I think it would be unfair not to acknowledge, as the leader already has, the input from the Chief Executive and the Commissioners to help drive this, and also Paul Helsby, because I think someone did bring this up, why haven't we done this before? The question begs that, but sometimes these things don't always come to the forefront. But we've got a good team here, some people up in the directors' areas there that have put their heads together, and we've come up with ideas, and this is one of them, and I'm sure it will work out well for us all. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Smithers. I think the point around some of the figures from Councillor Stanborough is we're talking about two different types of machines in some of these areas, but we'll let Councillor Smithers clarify that.
Yeah, I mean, there is two different machines. I mean, I don't know if you sort of fully grasp that area, but the Roadmaster is a machine which comes along and sprays out with air all the rubbish out of a pothole, then backfills it with a tar product, and then puts some chip-ins down and rolls over it. So it's able to do massive amounts, in small times. But the thermal road repair one is a one that just melts the road and reuses all that tarmac. So they are two different machines, two different technologies, but we will clarify those figures and get them over to you, so you're 100% happy.
Okay, thank you. Cabinet, are we happy to agree with the report?
Yes.
Thank you. So item 15, residential short breaks for carers of disabled children, children with special educational needs. Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Chairman. This report is to set out the ongoing proposals for residential short breaks for carers for disabled and children in need. as categorised in point 3.15 and 6 of the report, outlining what dictates what qualifications there are to be a child in this position. We're looking to gain approval to extend the current contract period up to 31st of March 2021 to be in line with the extension already in place that has been approved by the joint providers, the CCG, in a contract with NHFT. This needs to happen so that funding runs in line with our strategical partners. We plan a review of the current short break provision and to test the market, commencing with a consultation with families and public regarding the future model of provision starting in May 2020. We'll then go back to the market in July 2020. Short breaks for this sector is a duty of every local authority and must include crisis and short breaks to aid family life to ensure these children can remain in the care of their families. The previous procurement was unsuccessful. This leads us to having to extend this contract to give time to fully understand the needs of families and the providers concerned. We'll be holding events to engage with potential providers and encourage bids. There's a new SEND board in place now, and this includes parents so they can have their say and be fully engaged in the process. The current costs are £1,333,000 to NCC and £666,000 to the CCG. This amount, as before, so not to incur the wrath of our financial director, is already accommodated in the general budget. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Councillor Stone.
That's good.
Thank you, Chair. Clearly a really, really important service. This is a service that can make or break families who are under stress, looking after their children in need and children with disabilities of a very wide range. Number of questions, though. If the contract is going to be extended until March 2021, is the re-procurement in July looking at that date, March? Or is it for an earlier date? That's not clear to me what that really is all about. I'm really concerned that we don't have enough provision. Parents of SEND children are telling me that they're finding it increasingly difficult to get any kind of respite when they need it. So my question really is, what is the scale of need and what is the provision we've got? And is there a gap there? I think we really need to know. I'm really concerned as well that we're still looking to contract providers, so not be the providers ourselves. I just do not understand that. You know, we've got capital money that we can invest in buildings. We've got a transformation team that is supposed to be helping us transform the way we do things. I don't understand why we are looking to privatise services, which always costs more and are less flexible than running things ourselves. The good thing in this report is about the engagement with parents. I really like that. And the fact that there's going to be a parent shadow board and parents are going to be in on planning and designing some of the services. I really like that. I think that's a really good step forward. But I am concerned both about quality but also about quantity.
Thank you. Councillor Baker.
I will ask the officer concerned to get you a statement of need and send that to email to you. We have, and the contract we do anticipate will start in March 2021 to take over from this current one that's in place at the moment. And it is, I agree with you that outsourcing is not always the best option, but on this particular occasion, it has proved to be the best option. So we are working very closely with all those concerned to make sure that we do the best that we can within the financial envelope that we do have. Thank you.
Cabinet, are we happy to agree the reports? Very good. Item 16, street lighting PFI, conversion to LED lighting and full CMS. Councillor Smithers.
Thank you, Chairman. So the street lighting PFI conversion to LED lighting to a full CMS. CMS being a central management system, not a content management system. The vast majority of Northamptonshire streetlights are not fitted with LED units because at the time of the contract was awarded, LED units were too expensive when compared to the energy savings that they would generate. Since then, energy supply costs have doubled and LED units have halved in cost. Currently, under half of the lighting units controlled through the central management system. This allows lights to be controlled and monitored remotely. There is potentially opportunity for the Council to invest in new lanterns utilising interest-free government Salex loan funding to replace the lighting assets with LED units. All lanterns would be fitted with the CMS nodes, giving the Council full control over how they operate remotely. Salex funding is normally expected to be repaid within a 5-year period, so we're exploring a business case to achieve the replacement using energy savings to repay the loans without the need for prudential borrowing. We're also investigating through the Council's energy and carbon management teams whether there is potential for a longer interest-free loan period with Salex funding. After the Salex loans have been repaid, the proposed changes would save the Council around 24 million in energy and maintenance cost over the remaining term of the street lighting PFI contract, based on forecast energy increases. This report recommends that, subject there to be no requirement for potential borrowing, Cabinet 1 agrees to delegate authority to be given to the Executive Director of Finance in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Highways and Place to agree the financial business case for the investment proposal and seek approval from the Commissioners. 2. Agree to delegate authority to be given to the Executive Director Strategic Delivery and Transformation. You've got a very difficult title, haven't you? In consultation with the Cabinet Member for Highways and Place to take steps necessary to agree and sign a framework agreement with Balfour Beatty. Agreed that delegated authority to be given to the Executive Director for Strategic Development and Transformation in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Finance to take all steps necessary to agree and sign and enter into agreements with Salex Finance Limited to allow the project to be delivered.
Thank you. I'll call Councillor Stanborough. Thanks.
Thanks, Chair. I'm hoping that someone will be able to correct a misapprehension that the report creates. Paragraph 3.2 begins, a business case is being developed. I would have thought, a decision to spend £11.8 million, admittedly of someone else's money, not ours, but it's still taxpayers' money, might have a robust business case behind it already. And I note in the recommendation, recommendation 1, it talks about delegating authority to agree the financial business case for the investment. But nevertheless, I would have hoped that as a Cabinet, you would have wanted to see a robust business case before you when you make this decision. So can we hear the reason why that's not possible, please?
Thank you. Councillor Longley, do you have some comments to make?
Yes, I will. I think that this is another of those projects, just like the pothole machine, which is indicative of anybody that has listened to the last 2 budgets that I've put forward. I've heard me banging on about productivity as being our way forward, and I think this is a classic example. And if you look at item 3.3, if indeed there is 24 million savings and over 16 costing 12 million, but don't forget also it covers the 6.7% ongoing energy inflation, then this is another good project, just along with the one we just heard about a few minutes ago. So productivity, let's see more of it. Thank you.
Councillor Morris?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just a very brief reflection on this PFI. PFIs often don't get a very good rap, but I think this is one that we can be very proud of because it was put forward by a Conservative administration and has been well run by a Conservative administration, something you can't say about some of the other PFIs, but I will leave it at that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Smithers, if you'd like to come back on any of the points Councillor Stanborough made.
Yeah, I just wanted to come back to a slight error on my paperwork that I've got here. The decision on to agree that to delegate authority to be given to the Executive Director of Finance in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Highways and Place and the Commissioners to agree the financial business case for the investment. So we're not looking for the Commissioners to agree this, it's just to agree the financial, as you would expect, as obviously with the financial situation that the County Council was under. So I just wanted to make that clear on point one. Councillor Stanborough, we will come back to you on an email via your point on the points you raised and give you a full response on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Cabinet, we're happy to agree the reports. Thank you. Item 17, disaster recovery. Councillor Bowen.
Yep, okay. Very quickly then, this is a paper to propose an interim solution for the disaster recovery, and to note that long term there will be a solution which will be scoped and further developed as part of the unitary plan. Just a little bit of history. Last October, the audit report highlighted that there was no viable recovery plan or capability in place should the main Northampton data centre suffer a catastrophic failure. That was basically the background to it. And there were a number of areas of inadequacy, so that's why this has all come about. So there was an options appraisal basically developed, and 8 options were put forward and tabled. And cut a long story short, the one that was chosen was something called a permanent limited recovery solution. And that was based at Cambridge. We've had a lot of debate in Cabinet about this paper and have given it a good airing, I think it's fair to say, because we have had our concerns. What this solution does provide is an opportunity for technicians to undertake trial recovery and home their recovery processes whilst having the capacity tested ongoing, whilst another alternative for the unitaries is developed. It is actually the most cost-effective interim solution, although the total cost will be dependent on how much equipment is actually utilised, and we'll only know how much equipment is utilised when it's fully tested. And obviously it would have been tested probably more by now, but we've had the coronavirus, which has kind of taken over matters somewhat. So I just wanted to say that this is a short-term partial recovery. We have aired this fully. I think we have got one speaker, haven't we? So I am satisfied from the feedback and assurances I've been given from IT that this is the best solution going forward.
Thank you. Councillor McGee.
Thank you, Chair. I believe this came from the Audit Committee, didn't it? And it's a shame that it had to take the Audit Committee to do a risk assessment to find all the faults. But we are where we are. And I totally agree with the way forward. We've got 2 unitaries coming up. Things are going to change dramatically in the IT systems that the 2 unitaries are going to use and the one that we've got here. So this is the right way forward. I just wish we'd done it a lot earlier. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lizzie, anything?
Well, except to say that at least it shows that the Audit Committee is working, isn't it?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to reiterate that point. We have given this a very good airing in Cabinet and quite robustly, I think, and we're satisfied with the conclusion where we're at right now. So, Cabinet, we're happy to agree the reports.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, item 18, highway and transport block funding, general exception rule applied. Councillor Smithers.
Thank you, Chairman. This is to agree delegate authority to add to the capital programme for the annual grants received from the DFT. The reason for bringing this report essentially that the Department for Transport has not confirmed our annual funding allocations in time for them to be included on the monthly capital report earlier in this agenda, and to avoid us having to wait until the next Cabinet meeting to approve the budgets. As set out in the report, the majority of funding involved is for highways maintenance, and we do not want to miss out on the opportunity, hopefully, with better weather in the spring to get to the maintenance programme started. The report also covers a smaller amount of integrated transport block funding, which is used to fund many minor improvement schemes across the county. So the key points here is we've already heard on the 28th of February that we were not successful for the Highways Maintenance Challenge Fund. On examination of the list, it shows that few authorities successful in the last 2017 round received this funding this time. We do not know when the funding announcement will be made, but it usually comes around December. But it was obviously delayed by the election, hopefully in March, but when it has been in April before. While not referring to the formal Cabinet Approval Board process to avoid being constrained by monthly meeting dates, the same people are involved in the same process and would be followed. It's important that we keep the work flowing through the KIR WSP contract in the early months of the new financial year.
Thank you. Cabinet, are any comments on this? No? Thank you. Are we happy to agree the reports?
Yes.
Thank you. So item 19, approval of the updated Northamptonshire County Council policies on anti-money laundering, counter-fraud and corruption policy and the whistleblowing policy. Councillor Naden-Hawley.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just asking Cabinet to agree the recommendations in the report, but I'll give you a little bit of a background to them. Northamptonshire County Council has updated its fraud policies, namely the anti-money laundering policy, the anti-fraud and corruption policy and the whistleblowing policy. These policies were reported to the Audit Committee in the summer of 2019. Further work has been undertaken since then to update the drafts and to report them in their updated format to the Northamptonshire leadership team and the corporate leadership team prior to being taken to Cabinet for approval. The policies have been updated to reflect current guidance and to fit in with the current organisational senior officer structure of the Council and partner organisations. The anti-money laundering policy, the purpose behind it is for employees and officers that are in particular to deal with financial transactions such as procuring services to report any information that appears to be suspicious to either the Chief Internal Auditor and or the Monitoring Officer. The anti-fraud and corruption policy, the purpose of this policy is to provide definitions of fraud, bribery and corruption and to specify reporting lines for such matters. The policy serves as a reminder to staff that the Council will not tolerate fraud or corruption in the administration of Council duties and will tackle, for example, dishonestly abusing a position for personal gain. The whistleblowing policy is to explain to officers, contractors and stakeholders the means by which they can report suspected misconduct, illegal acts or failure to act and what protections they will receive when they do this. It also includes on where to go for advice on any concerns, which includes an internal contact, the monitoring officer and external contacts, which include the organisation public concern at work. So therefore, Cabinet, I'd just like you to agree to the three policies, updated policies. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. Councillor Roy.
Thank you, and thank you for the briefing you gave Councillor Naden-Hawley around this. As you've said, part of it relates to material brought up at Audit Committee, and I agree with you, Councillor Bowen, it does show that the Audit Committee is doing some work. However, regrettably, when things get drawn to its attention that perhaps shouldn't have been, that is a regrettable circumstances. One of my constituents was an individual who raised concerns which were actually taken up but to the Audit Committee, and this is part of my concern around this. So he still has concerns in relation to the public accountability, and given the certain things that have happened in the course in the last few years, particularly in relation to the budget and subsidiary companies that have been audited under the council's own audit, which provided us with quite complex problems. I would seek assurances that this is remedied by these new policies. I would also seek some assurance about support being there for whistleblowing in the authority. Certainly, I think there is quite a lot of concern amongst staff about whistleblowing and what measures are being done to make sure that whistleblowing is encouraged and protected.
Thank you. I just add that I thank the audit committee for what they asked for, but the point needs to be made that these policies were not. It's not like they were non-existent. These are before us today because they needed updating. Thank you, Councillor Naden-Hawley.
Thank you, Councillor Roy. I totally agree with you that I think the Audit Committee has done a great job, but I will assure you, along with the organisation, that we will make sure that your concerns are taken into consideration. I'm sorry for that person who had that issue, but hopefully it will be better going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Cabinet, are we happy to agree the report?
Yes, agreed.
Agreed. Just a point of clarification.
Sorry, Councillor, if I may. If there is an allegation of fraud and there's a member of staff, I need to know that directly, so you need to inform me who the member of staff is so I can deal with that issue directly. I would take that very seriously.
It was a statement in the abstract, not with a specific...
So it's not a case, it was a theory. So I'm not clear. I'm not clear. I'm just really worried if there's an allegation that we deal with it.
I will communicate with you directly about my constituents' concerns.
Yes, please.
It's not the case. Yeah, and the point is here, we've got to be very careful on the sort of things that we do say to make a point, really, if they're borderline litigious or politically motivated. We need a bit of clarity. We tried to be transparent here. So if there is any issues from any members, please let either myself or the Chief Exec or the relevant Cabinet member know. Thank you. So let's move on to item 20. So we'll all be aware that part of this, the appendices of item 20 is on pink paper. So I just need to ask Cabinet and Councillor Roy, who's registered down to speak on this, that if you're going to refer to this, to the appendices, can you let us know now and we'll go through the exemption procedure?
What I'm referring to is in the white papers.
Okay, thank you. And Cabinet, we okay with that? So item 20 is the Northampton North West Relief Road. Councillor Smithers.
Thank you. So I'd like to start with the caveat. This is all subject to planning permission to agree the purchase of the land of the scheme. Also to agree the award of a design and build contract to Balfour Beatty with a break clause before proceeding to consultation. Increase the budget for the scheme to enable works to continue and the road to be built. I can understand there's been a lot of speakers and groups that have been concerned over the years concerning this report in advance of the Development Control Committee considering the planning application. It is because we are taking more time to ensure that the committee is presented with the best information that we need to take these decisions now to avoid nearly losing £8 million worth of SEMLEP funding towards the scheme. Nothing in this report compromises the decision of the Development Control Committee that it will take. It does not grant planning permission. If they do not grant planning permission, then the scheme cannot progress to construction. So myself and officers have also met with some objectors of the scheme, and to the extent I understand their concerns. However, if we do not build this road, we will not be providing the infrastructure that Northampton needs to grow. Some of the detailed financial information scheme is set out, as the leader has just explained, in the confidential appendix. This contains assumptions about funding from individual developers, but that is also so that we can keep the pressure on our contractors to keep the cost down so we can really get the best deal out of this. The current scheme cost is £32.532 million. Working with Balfour Beatty through a design and build process, we aimed to get that to 28 million through value engineering. Now, the design and build process, for those of you in the room that don't understand, is that the contractor designs it, builds it, and takes on the residual risk, the financial risk. So there's no coming back to the county council for extra money at a later date. If they decide that they can't continue, they have to continue on the job. As a condition of their funding through SEMLEP, it requires us to agree the higher 32.53 million budget. The scheme is scheduled to go to the Development Control Committee in July. Construction is scheduled to start in late September, again subject to their decision in planning, and is provisionally scheduled for opening in summer 2022. So I seek approval from Cabinet to get that on its way.
Thank you, Councillor Smithers. Councillor Roy?
Thank you, Councillor Smithers, and thank you for the opportunity to address Cabinet again. Just questioning whether in 8.9, publicly publishing the figure in terms of what you expect to be achieved in terms of the cost reduction, whether that's in the best interest of the council.
So the value engineering will be part of negotiations with the contractor and will be ongoing, but we will seek to get a road built to the best possible standard, to the best possible price, that's pretty much what that means. You know, there's going to be no compromise or anything there. It will be a good road and good for the county, or good for the town as well.
Yeah, I understand as well as a Northampton Borough Councillor, I believe the delivery of this, needs to happen as soon as we can to support the growth of and the infrastructure of Northampton. And I welcome the cooperation with Northampton Borough Council in helping to, move this forward. It is really important we capture this point in time, use the will from the likes of SEMLEP, from the Borough Council, the backing that we're putting behind it, hopefully today, to really move this on to deliver for Northampton. And I do understand, as Councillor Smithers mentioned, some of the concerns, but we really need this piece of road, and we've got to try and mitigate those concerns as much as we can, and build this to accommodate the growth of our town here in Northampton, which is needs to expand considerably over the next few years. Yeah. Councillor Bone?
And I also just wanted to concur that I like the commerciality of this in terms of, holding the people that are going to build this road to account, and also that they can't come back to constantly ask for more money. So we're being much more commercial and much more savvy in the way that we're actually delivering our contracts for the future, which is, I think, great news. Anything further to add? Councillor?
Yeah, just echo what Councillor Bowen said, that it's a good deal for the county, and we need to do these sort of deals moving forward into the unitary, and I hope that moves forward. Thank you.
Very good. Cabinet, we're happy to agree the report?
Definitely.
Okay, thank you. So we move on to item 21, which is the update on Sure Pay a Fine contract, which is very good news, but we need to I need to read this paragraph out. That under section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business on the grounds that if public were present, it would be likely that exempt information under Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Act of the descriptions against each item would be disclosed to them. So, unfortunately, we have to ask our colleagues. Okay, Cabinet, are we happy to agree that? So we need to ask our colleagues if they'd depart.